Hey, this is Tom Glavine, and you're listening to Out of Left Field on The Grueling Truth.
Hey guys, Graham and Chris back here with you once again, Out of Left Field, coming to you, brought to you by thegruelingtruth.net and MLB Mayhem. Check them out at MLB Mayhem on Twitter, at Grueling Truth on Twitter as well, and of course on Facebook. Check out our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham, and of course at OO Left Field on Twitter. And a ton of stuff to get to this week. Honestly, too much stuff to fit into one show. So some of the things that aren't going to really change, some quotes and little things that are still going to be there for next week, we'll push back. So always make sure you're back here next week. But this has been really a week of not so much injuries, but just finding out that guys aren't going to be available. So we put the ball in play on this week. And again, I want to thank you guys for being with us last week, as we had Jason Klein on from Force 3. Again, thank you to him for coming on. Also hope you checked out our video on YouTube. I know it's been a while since we've been on there, but it's up. Go to youtube.com, search Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham. You'll find it there. It was on the Force 3 mask and why it's so good for everything from catchers, umpires, from Little League, all the way to the big. So turning our sights now on to this past week, Chris, you mentioned this to me. Really, I was working and hadn't heard anything, and then come to find out that the Pittsburgh Pirates all-star center fielder Starling Marte is going to be sitting out half the season beyond the All-Star break and is not going to be eligible for postseason play. And as soon as you hear the words "ineligible for postseason play," that tells you one word and one word only, and that is steroids. A positive test for PEDs. But unfortunately, this PED is an anabolic steroid. Tell us what the hell is going on in Pittsburgh.
Well, what's going on in Pittsburgh is that Starling Marte has basically just ended the Pirates' hopes for a postseason appearance anyway. So making him ineligible for postseason play is sort of doubling down on that idea, right? And the way he did that was he tested positive for a substance called, let's see, I have it here. Nandrolone, right? And see, nandrolone is actually an anabolic steroid. So we're not talking about blood doping or secretly doping or, the HGH thing. We're talking about actual anabolic steroid use. This is what the league initially put this rule into effect to prevent. The anabolic steroid uses by other players in the past. And this anabolic steroid in particular, according to the head of the Balco lab in the Bay Area, is what they call the kiss of death. And the reason they call it that is because it has the, quote, unfortunate combination of staying in a person's system for an excessively long time and being detectable at what's called ultra-trace rates. So according to Conte, who's the head of Balco Labs, just a single use will remain in a person's system for at least 6 months and as long as 18 months, which means that depending on how recently Marte used this substance, he could theoretically test positive again at the end of this suspension. And that positive test could, in fact, lead to another positive. Go ahead.
Now, I'm not a guy who's, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to sell my soul to be successful in whatever life venture I choose to take, which obviously one is hopefully doing the show. So when I see that something, and this is off of drugs.com, okay, so we know that, they give you all kinds of stuff. I used it when I was a cop to kind of get an idea of what was what, figure out what pills were what pills, all that kind of stuff. We were taking evidence in. When I see that something may cause liver tumors or bloody cysts in the liver and spleen, and if they occur, they will usually go away once you stop taking nandrolone. However, you may not know that you have one of these tumors or cysts until severe, possibly life-threatening bleeding occurs in the abdomen. For some reason, call me just not a risk taker, but I don't really think I'd be putting that needle anywhere on my body.
Yeah, listen, I get upset when I go to a doctor and they prescribe me a medication and it has side effects like headaches, dizziness, and nausea. If one of the side effects is death, I'm probably not going to take that drug. It's probably just not going to happen. Unfortunately, I guess Marte thinks that the only thing I can think is a big contract, right? He's coming into a contract.
That's the sad thing is he'd gotten that 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, it makes no sense. He picked up a 6-year, $31 million extension in 2014. You're already locked up. Yes, you have a buyout coming in 2 or 3 years, but I mean, how long? If you're going to juice, at least juice on the year before your buyout comes, and you can go ahead and go to free agency. Don't do it when you're 2 years still removed from even being able to get out of Pittsburgh. If that's what you're wanting to do.
But here's the thing, and this is a question that I asked you the day that I found out about this, and I had to call you. This is big news, right? Anytime you see a player get suspended for 80 games, that's a big deal, right? What does this say? What is this going to do to Starling Marte's career?
If we had a soundbite of crickets, I would play it right now. Nothing. Why would it?
Right.
Ryan Braun is still playing. Ryan Braun has been the main point of trade talks because he has been playing well. He was, I believe, voted into the All-Star, or not voted in, but he was in the All-Star game last year as a manager selection. This does nothing. He's going to come back. He's going to apologize. I told you his PR guy needs a raise because his PR guy gave a great statement that sounded so, man, I'm apologetic and I'm contrite and, I'm pissed off I got caught. No, let's be honest what it is. But end of the day, he's going to come back. He's going to finish out the season. He's going to finally get to the point where he's going to be contract eligible. And I told you that in 2020 and 2021 are his option years. He's got an $11.5 and a $12.5 million team option in 20 and 21 respectively, with a $2 million and a $1 million buyout in those respective years as well. So he's going to lose about $2.5 million out of his $5 million this year. He's due 7.8 and 10.3 the next two before he's even eligible to try and get out of the contract. So by the time that 2020 comes around, for most people, as long as he's performing, this is a distant memory that means nothing, and he's going to get a large contract as long as he's playing well and if he still tests clean. It's how it's going to be. Yes, some are going to hate it, but it's baseball. Let's just be honest. That's what's going to happen.
And see, I have a problem with that because it's doing exactly the opposite of what baseball wants to do by giving out these long suspensions, right? What baseball wants to accomplish by giving out these long suspensions is to discourage people from this behavior. But those people know that when they come back, they're still going to be among the top players in the game. So 80 games, and maybe they lost some money from one contract year, but they're still going to get paid the rest of their money. They're still going to be eligible for big contracts in the future. It's not going to really affect them the way that baseball intends. And we discussed this before the show, I have a way that I think is viable that will discourage players from doing that. And and
let's be honest, we've only had a handful of guys that I think have gotten to the second level of suspension, and one guy, and he was in the minor league system, who took the lifetime ban. I think it was a Mets. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but it was a Mets reliever who received the lifetime ban, which is obviously he can still be reinstated once he applies after a certain amount of time, but Jenry Mejia is who it was. And very rarely do we actually get to that point. But I like your idea, and I know you're about to share it, but that's my thing is very few guys get to that point. But if they do, I think your idea makes a lot of sense.
So here's my idea. And Mr. Manfred, if you're listening, feel free to just borrow this.
And come on the show. And please, sir,
please come
on the show. We are. I'll go. I'm not too proud to beg. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to sing. But I ain't too proud to beg. Okay. I apologize to everybody. Just keep listening. No more. I swear to God. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, if you
so
work for the Voice, don't talk to me.
Here's the plan. If a player reaches that second level, right, that 162-game suspension where they're out for a full season of baseball, then I think that in addition to that 162-game suspension, a 5-year moratorium on contract talk should be placed on their career. And what that means is that let's say a player has 2 years left in his contract, a guy like Marte, who's eligible for contract talks in a couple of years, right, pops hot for the second time and gets the 162-game suspension. He comes back, he finishes out his contract, and his next contract has to be 3 years, right? The rest, whatever the end of that moratorium is, has to be a 3-year length and can only be at the league minimum. Because what happens then...
I want to ask you this on that token, because he has 2 years left with an optional buyout, a team option. At this point, I mean, I guess the team can go ahead and choose to not carry it. Yeah, they can choose to buy him out and then renegotiate for a league minimum. And that's where you're going, right? Like they aren't.
Yeah, absolutely.
They aren't required because the
team has that option.
Agreed to go through
based
the agreement.
on right. He broke that agreement by using
I'm good with it. Yeah.
performance-enhancing drugs. So he has a moratorium of 5 years, whether he gets bought out and renegotiated now or finishes his contract in his next contract negotiation. And now, granted, you can't sign him for 7 years at the league minimum if his moratorium is only 3 years. But you get him, if he wants to continue to play baseball, you get him, whoever takes him gets him for 3 years at league minimum. And the reason that that's going to stop these players from doing stuff like this is because they're going to go, a guy like Marte is going to go from making hundreds of millions of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Well, $1 million, like $1.5 million, right?
He'll get the veteran minimum.
Right.
So obviously a little bit different than rookie. But now this also would go through, if he wants to sign 3 one-year deals, he just has to complete 3 seasons at that pay rate. Doesn't matter. It's 3 seasons at the league minimum pay rate for veterans, regardless of if it's 3 years with one team or 3 teams 1 year each.
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't matter who pays him. It doesn't matter what. It just if he is going to play baseball in those 3 years, then he has to play at the league minimum. And the thing is that if he decides not to play baseball for those 3 years, doesn't matter. He comes back, he's still on moratorium.
Okay.
Those are 3 years of contract, not 3 years of calendar. His next 3 calendar years, his next 3 contract years of baseball are at the league minimum. That's it.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and something that I kind of had thought of. You and I discussed this when we did our breakdowns over the course of the offseason. Of course, you guys, you can always find all of our previous shows out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. You can find them there at OO Left Field on Twitter. And, of course, thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak. Andrew McCutchen was unceremoniously moved from center field to right field to begin this season. It was just kind of this is where you're going to go. We couldn't find anybody that wanted to trade for you, so suck it up.
Right.
So now, what does this do for the – I mean, obviously, I think you have to move McCutchen back.
Right.
But, I mean, we have seen him slowly on the backside of being one of the top center fielders in the game of baseball. So what does this do as a whole for the Pirates outfield and for Andrew McCutchen?
Well, it does exactly what you and I thought it would do, right? It moves Andrew McCutchen back to center field. And, in fact, the Pirates have already made that move. McCutchen will start in center field today against the New York Yankees. Adam Frazier is going to start in right field. And, of course, Gregory Polanco will still be over in left. But it does exactly what we thought it was going to do. However, what does that do to the Pirates? That's the question. Because if Kutch goes back to center field, is that bad defensively for the Pirates, or is he going to step up his game? That's my question.
Well,
right?
Well, I think he is. I think what this does for him, I think at this point that the relationship has run its course. Okay, you and I have been there. Everyone has probably been there in a relationship where it's just, look, it was what it was. It was good, but at the end of the day, it's not where you're meant.
Wait a minute.
Excuse me, to be in your life.
I'm sorry. Time out. Because you just sent me a note, and I have to know if this is something that actually happened.
Yes.
This note that you just sent me.
There's actually. I think if I pull the where I found it, there's actually a video of him doing that.
Apparently, Andrew McCutchen, on Tuesday night, the day that Marte was suspended, McCutchen plays center field that night, makes a sprinting catch at the wall in the right center gap, and after the play, pounds his chest and appears to say, "This is my spot. This is my spot," while pointing to center field.
I just sent you that clip, so you should be able to see it. It was against the Cardinals, and right up against the Cardinals bullpen, and
people are going to say,
and they zoomed in on him. I mean, you can read his lips pretty clearly.
People are going to say that this is dancing on Starling Marte's grave, that this is Andrew McCutchen dancing on Marte's grave. But you know what I'm going to say? This is exactly what I want to see from Andrew McCutchen. I want to see Andrew McCutchen get fired up and get angry and demand that center field position back.
See, for me, I think it's more shoving it in the face of the Pirates, going, you thought you could find something better, and look what you got. You got a guy who's disgracing the game, and you want to move me, who has been a model citizen in this game, and just kind of cast me aside. I mean, almost in the literal sense, you cast me off to the corner instead of letting me play, where I've played my entire career. And this is, I think it's good. I told you what I think this means, at least for me, is you and I both have already said, again, even during our preseason, looks at all the teams, that there was very little possibility that the Pirates were going to make the playoffs. And they've played well out of the chute, more or less, but we didn't really think that grand scheme they were going to have enough to grab a wild card, because they're not going to win the division. Let's just go ahead and be honest. They're in the worst division to try and win right now, because you have the Cubbies and the Cardinals, and while the Cardinals look a little bit rough, the Cubbies are going to be the Cubs.
Right.
What I think this does is that when you get near the trade deadline, and like I said, I think that that if you've been in that relationship where most of us have been, where things have kind of just run their course and it's time to move on, and that was made pretty evident by the winter meetings and the talks to try and move him to Washington, all the different kind of places to move McCutchen. To me, this makes the perfect time for Kutch to pretty much sell himself. He can show what he's got. He can sell himself for the next 80 games, or however many games there are until the trade deadline. There's I think a pretty good expectation that the Pirates will not be in a contention, at that point when the deadline comes. And you look at trying to move Andrew McCutchen, get back what you can for him, and put him somewhere where he has a chance, because Marte's going to come back in those 80 games, 77, 78 now, something like that. So why not, if Andrew McCutchen is showing he still has it, and we know that fires, we're seeing it now, it'll continue. We saw how amped up guys got in the World Baseball Classic, and we've kind of seen it carry over. Now he's got an even bigger reason to prove, because he had a good WBC. Now he's been disrespected. Now he gets to go back because it's one of those, the team comes to him contrite, and Clint Hurdle is basically saying, hey, it's yours again. And now he's saying, it is mine now. Should have been mine to start the year. I'm going to show you why. And other teams are going to look at that, and I think there will be a lot of intense trade talk surrounding Andrew McCutchen when the deadline comes a calling here in the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the important things to remember about Andrew McCutchen is that even though he's starting to sort of age, right, he's not the youngest player in that left field at 31, I think he is. He's not having the worst season he's ever had, but he's not Andrew McCutchen yet anymore either, right? He's hitting 254. Sorry, he's 30. He's hitting 254. His on base is under 300, but this is really much what we saw from him last year, right? He had a pretty bad season last season. In fact, He hit 256. His on-base was better, but not great. And that's sort of what we're getting from him now. However, if Andrew McCutchen can do what Andrew McCutchen did in the World Baseball Classic, which he was hitting over 330, his on-base was almost 400. He was hitting those, I hate this phrase, but he was hitting those clutch sort of singles and doubles in the World Baseball Classic, those big hits in big situations. If we can get that from him, and we can get the sort of defensive play that we're used to seeing from Andrew McCutchen, does Marte get his spot back when he returns?
Yes, and I think that's why the trade talks will be so intense, is because that's going to be the idea. Is okay, Marte's coming back. We know we're going to keep him anyway. There's not going to be this, all right, well, shame on you. We're so disappointed that we're not. No, he's still going to be one of the best players in the game. I'm interested to see what his power does, but I think that's going to be the reason why
and I think that's
wants to go.
If McCutchen
that's also
going
to make the rift way bigger. The rift is going to get expansively bigger if Marte comes back, and then it's like, hey, Kutch, thanks for your hard work in center. Now get back over to right.
Let me ask you this,
the chasm will be huge.
Let me ask you this, though. If we see Andrew McCutchen get back to Andrew McCutchen of 2014, right? 314, 410 on base, 508 slug or 542 slugging. If we see that Andrew McCutchen come back during this 80 games, does Marte still get his spot back? If McCutchen is obviously the better player?
I think so, because how much do you want to tell me that past performance isn't a guarantee of future performance? So
I'm saying if he's performing
I get what you're saying, but my point is that we have seen the drop off has been steady. Now the same drop off has happened with Justin Verlander, and now he's kind of on that upswing again. And that's been my position is, hey, we're seeing this. I think he's kind of taking that number one role back. Fulmer's right there. So I'm kind of flipping the argument back to you that there's no guarantee that if he has one good season that you go ahead and tell Starling Marte.
No. I'm not saying get his.
Still a younger piece.
I'm not saying get his spot back for the rest of his life. I'm saying for the rest of this season. When Marte comes back, if he's performing like that currently, when Marte comes back, does Marte sit in right field for the rest of the season while Kutch plays?
I mean, you could just kind of, as a way to say, hey, you made the dumb decision, so now you're relegated to the corner. But even if they do that, come 2018, he's back in center.
No, absolutely. And I don't think that McCutchen is a Pirate in 2018, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think McCutchen's a Pirate. There's a rift there.
Oh, McCutchen. I'm sorry, McCutchen. I meant Marte. Yeah. I don't either.
No, I don't think McCutchen's
I'll tell you the big difference, though, because Marte is going to be out 80 games, right? So that's about what? It's about 2.5 months.
Right.
There's a possibility of another star being out for 2 months, maybe more. There's two big differences. One, he's out because he was an idiot doing something absolutely stupid to do in the middle of a baseball season.
Wait a minute. How is that different from steroids? He's an idiot doing something absolutely stupid.
Yes, but number two, he's also going to get paid while he's not pitching. And we're talking about Madison Bumgarner. Chris had not heard this, and then your first words, I think, when I told you, were DA, and I don't mean that you were speaking Russian, but there were a couple other curly letters mixed in there. But Madison Bumgarner is headed to the 10-day disabled list, just because I think they're trying to figure out where they're going to. I think 60 days where he'll be eventually. Of course, they can leave him there and keep adding time. But he got in a dirt bike accident, hurt his shoulder, hurt some ribs, and the problem at this point is that there is no timetable for a return, but there's internal concern that a 2-month estimated absence may be on the low side. That's coming from ESPN's Buster Olney. He may be right, man.
And this is one of the few times.
What's that?
This is one of the few times that I fervently hope that Buster Olney is wrong.
Yeah, but if that's the case,
This is the same thing that we saw last year, right? This is the same thing that we saw last year. Obviously, not the context.
That's what I was going to come with. That's what I was going to come to you with. We saw this with Kershaw, but do the pieces the Giants have in place in that rotation? Is there enough there? Plus, with the offense, it's been a little bit shaky, and the bullpen it's still on the bottom side of baseball. Do they have enough? Do they actually have enough to compete, or is this a chance now for the Diamondbacks to actually have a nice couple of month run and try and compete with the Dodgers for the NL West or a shot in that wild card, or even the Rockies for that matter?
And here's the thing. So let's say he goes on the 60-day DL, right? And it is 60 days when he comes back. That's 15 starts? 10 starts?
Yeah. I mean, if you're saying roughly every 5 days with an off day built in, that's a minimum of 10 starts. Probably
so let's say
12 or more.
Let's say it's 12 starts, and he's already done 4. He's already started 4 games. So if he misses 12 plus his 4, that's already 16 starts in his season that are going to go with no decisions, right? He is currently has no decision in 2 of his starts and losses in 2 of his starts. They have lost all 4 games that he has started. But now he misses 12. That's 16. The guy's only going to make 25, maybe 30 starts this year, which means he's actually missing half of his own season.
Let's not forget the hits and the RBIs. I just got to throw it out there just for a little bit of laughter. And the dude can swing the stick too.
We're gonna miss him in the home run derby this year because he's not gonna have an opportunity to perform.
Right. and on a more serious side as well, to beat the darker side of this even more is that it happened of all things to his throwing shoulder.
Right.
So it isn't just obviously any injury like that is bad, but the fact that it's on your throwing shoulder and this is his first on the DL and something that's this severe, I certainly don't think it's going to be a career ender like what we've seen with Josh Hamilton. We'll get to in a minute, but this is you don't want it to recur itself, but yeah.
Right. What I was getting at when I said that this is what we saw last year with Kershaw, right, is that one of the main forces on the mound in the National League West has gone down. And this creates a vacuum of competitiveness for that team, right? You lose something from baseball in the National League West when one of these 2 guys goes down. We lost something last season when Kershaw was out. We didn't get to watch the best in the game go down in or play in all of his starts and really try to make that statement that we saw, that competitive statement. And I think you're right. I think that the 2 best starters in the National League West have gone down in back-to-back seasons. That's a valid opinion, and I think you could support that with evidence. But we're going to lose competitiveness in the National League West now. Is it going to give the Diamondbacks an opportunity to compete for a wild card slot? Absolutely, I think it will. The Diamondbacks are playing really good baseball right now.
And on a bit of a bright side, it's really going to give you a chance to see what Ty Blatch can do. You're really going to finally get a chance. I think that's who fills the 5 spot and everyone moves up.
Ty Blatch is going to get a position in that rotation. He's going to make probably 15 starts. And in my opinion, 15 starts from Ty Blatch in the middle of the season are really going to show us, hey, either this guy needs to go back down to AAA and stay there, or stay in the bullpen, however you want to do it, or Matt Cain needs to sit and Ty Blatch needs to start. And that, in my opinion, is
I think of all things, that's going to be the piece that if there has to be a silver lining here, now there's no we can try and work Ty in here. No, now you have 2 or 3 months to just let him pitch, get him into a rotation, get him into a normal, every 5 or 6 day kind of thing, and let him go and see what happens.
And that's exactly what the Giants have done, right? They made that move yesterday. So the rotation now stands at Cueto, Moore, Samardzija, Kane, Block. Those are the 5 guys. So now we're going to get to see, for however long he's on the DL, we're going to get to see Ty Block every 5 days. And I, for one, not just as a fan, but as a guy who likes to watch players get an opportunity to show what they can do in the major leagues, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see Ty Block come up, especially after that start he had against the Dodgers in the waning days of the season last year, where he comes out and shuts the Dodgers out for 8 innings. I want to see if that's going to be his everyday MO or if that was a fluke.
No, exactly. I'm sorry, I was looking at something here. I didn't know you were. I thought you had more on the point, so I didn't mean to have dead air on you.
Well,
but
I didn't want to come off as being too much of a homer. So,
well, of all the times when there's actually a legitimate Giant story to discuss, now you don't want to come off as being a homer. Wow. So let me get this straight. So I sing on the show, and the one time we have something to actually legitimately discuss, you don't want to come off as being a homer and overtalk it. What the hell is going on with today's show, man? Seriously, what are we doing?
We broke it.
Yeah, I guess. No,
ladies and gentlemen, today's show is going to be cut short because apparently Graham and I are broken.
Hey, man, judging by that bruise I showed you from last night, yeah,
I think it's going to be a good. I mean, obviously, losing Madison Bumgarner for however long he's gone is a terrible thing for the Giants. But I think personally that Ty Block getting into the rotation is a great thing for them.
It does, and that's going to be the important thing for him. Is, like I said, he finally gets a chance to show. And
now, I wish it would have happened that Matt King got into a motorbike accident.
All right. That's a night stop. Stop.
And he had to go onto the DL. And Ty Block got it.
Stop. We are not going to start wishing for players to get injured. Just stop. Just stop. Just cease fire. Good Lord.
There's a hierarchy, sir.
All right, guys, there are a couple of some new segments we want to start rolling out to you guys every week. And the first is going to be our backstop of the week. All right, this is going to be something that it may have a little bit of fluidity. We're going to try and let it be a catcher. May end up just being at times just a defender of the week with whoever we think really has been the top top guy on defense for the week in the major leagues. So as much as we've been
one of the things that we're really trying to accomplish here, and the reason we want to focus on catchers is because we want to find those guys who are behind the dish, who are making the most impact on the league for their team, right?
Right.
And when we get into the new segments, in which we'll get to later in the show, we'll kind of explain more why. And these are just two of the first of probably several new segments that we're going to introduce to the show. We're going to try to get into our starters of the week, position player type guys of the week, most impactful player of the week, that sort of thing. But we really want to stop with our backstops, and also because I feel, and I'm sure Graham, you agree with me, that despite being a show, really the only show that looks at baseball from absolutely every facet of the game, to include officiating, even though we are that show, we still don't do enough about officiating on a week-to-week basis. So we're going to introduce another segment called Behind the Mask, and that's where Graham's really going to take over and go into something umpire-related every single week, so that we can really sort of bring you baseball from that facet of the game as well.
Right. And this is going to not be something that's going to take 10, 15 minutes. It's going to be relatively quick. Just kind of want to give you guys a chance to start seeing the game maybe from just a different bit of a small different side. So as you and I were kind of talking as we get ready to kind of move on from MadBum, but the possibility that Ty Block goes ahead and gets a chance to really show what he can do and make his presence felt and kind of establish himself. A guy who we had a chance to talk with couple of months ago when I was out at the Diamond Resorts Invitational, who has changed some scenery and gone further south, is Brian McCann. He went from New York, wanted to go down to the Houston Astros. He brought the beard back. I'm telling you, man, the beard has been why he has been so successful. He said it was, like waking up and not recognizing yourself. The beard's rocking and rolling. And
right.
After you guys talked about it, I think he's a logical and the right choice to be our, kind of our first ever backstop of the week. So, I mean, tell us what Brian McCann has done to go ahead and get our out of left field backstop of the week honors for the first time.
Well, it's pretty simple. In 16 at-bats over the last 7 days, Brian McCann is hitting .438 with a .500 on base and slugging .438 as well. He's OPS at .938. That's his offensive stats. But let's also take a look at what Brian McCann is doing as far as fielding, right? Because backstop of the week is more than the impact that you can make as a fielder or as a hitter, but also about the impact that you make as a fielder, as a defender, right? And we all know that Brian McCann is one of the great defensive catchers in baseball, and just to sort of prove that and really show that, his range factor, right, which is the putouts and assists divided by numbers of innings played at the position, he has a range factor right now at 9.62, which means that's what he's averaging in a game, right? 9.62 putouts or assists. And that shows, even though he's not the greatest at everything he does as a catcher, he's a great framer, right? We know that. He's not the best as far as catching stolen bases. In fact, base stealers steal bases at a 750 rate against him. He's 2 for 8 on throwing out base runners. But his ability to be a catcher with range, get in front of the ball, stop pass balls, and also to help get runners out at the plate and on those sort of dribblers is great. I mean, he's one of the best in the game. And so his defensive numbers, and especially those huge offensive numbers this last week, are really why Brian McCann is going to be our inaugural backstop of the week. And I'd like to also take just 3 or 4 seconds to let Brian McCann tell us why he is the backstop of the week while he describes what it's like to have that beard back.
How's it feel to have the beard back?
Oh, it feels amazing. 3 years of looking in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. So, yeah, I'm excited about having that back.
And, man, I tell you, the grin on his face when he said that, he's sitting there kind of doing the beard circuit. Oh, man, it feels amazing. I couldn't help but laugh because he was trying to run in the clubhouse, and I was like, I didn't have the face for no beard. Like, all right, it feels so good to have that on. So it definitely made me, gave me a pretty good, pretty good laugh. But so congratulations to Brian McCann. We get you probably don't care because you probably don't even know that you're the inaugural backstop of the week. But hey, if you do, if you're listening, congratulations. And guys, again, make sure you tune in next week for who is going to be our second backstop of the week, and also we'll get into Behind the Mask here in just a few minutes. Now, and I hate because I kind of feel like it's kind of a down start to the show, but this is the one that kind of, I guess, bummed me out the most, and it's the fact that the Rangers released Josh Hamilton today, yesterday, from his minor league contract. He has another knee injury, and a guy who had, one of the best comeback stories. He was a guy that everyone seemed to really kind of, they liked him. Obviously, he was, at the center when at the game when the young fan's dad reached for a ball and fell, unfortunately, and passed away because he fell from the stands down. And there was a huge thing where they actually had that young fan come out and throw out the first pitch in the playoffs. Hamilton was very close to the family, but we know what he's been through. He's been through obviously a ton of off the field things. Went through a lot of addiction issues and was able to get away from that. There were stories in the clubhouse that when they won the ALCS 2 years in a row, that they would basically shower him in Sprite. Then he would leave the locker room, and they would have the champagne corks pop because the taste of alcohol could obviously trigger that addiction, and he didn't want to be a part of that. And then, so I didn't like that he left Texas. I told you that. I think it was a mistake. I think that he had a good support group there. Kinsler was there, guys he was close with, guys that when he fell off the wagon, had that relapse 3 or 4 years ago, knew it. And they were there. They supported him. And to me, I thought that going to L.A., to a bigger city with brighter lights, away from that support system, was not a good idea. Now, the whole move to L.A. completely fell on its face. They tried to grab him. They tried to get Pujols. I think Lackey was still there at the time. Jared Weaver was still there, and it just nothing really ever came together. And unfortunately, I think it's pretty obvious at this time, after the amount of knee surgeries he has had on both knees, that, Josh Hamilton's 35 years old. He was trying to get a chance at a roster spot, this year. Didn't happen. He hasn't played in the big leagues in 2 seasons, or a season and a half. I think he's done, and I hate that because it's a very inauspicious ending to a player who I respected a lot because of what he had been through and what he had done to get back. So that was a bummer for me. I really hated that.
Yeah, and I like Josh Hamilton. I'll never really forget the 2010 World Series, which Josh Hamilton played extremely well in. But he's aging, right? He turns 36 next month. He's had 11 surgeries. This is following a reconstructive surgery on his left knee just last year. He's looking at a 12th surgery in the face, and he said that he would have to, quote, evaluate the situation. I'm disappointed but not discouraged that my knee problems have not allowed me to play this season. I think, and this is General Manager John Daniels. I think, he says, with the number of knee surgeries he's had, and I'm not a doctor, but the odds are pretty challenging to overcome. That being said, he's overcome a lot of odds in his life. However, being released by Texas after this latest knee injury is probably the signal that Josh Hamilton's career is over. I don't think that there's another team in the league that's going to pick up a 36-year-old playing on 2 reconstructed knees who is still.
And let's be honest, he's probably going to be 37 or 38 after all the rehab he's even able to try and get back in the box.
Right. I just don't see anybody picking up a ball player that old.
Yeah.
It is an inauspicious end to his career, to a career of a guy who's a 290 career hitter with 200 home runs. And who knows? If he had been able to stay healthy, or if he had been able to avoid that unfortunate addiction that he did have when he was young, who knows what his career could have been. I think that you're right.
They should have won that World Series against the Cardinals. I remember when David Freese hit that dinger. The Cardinals won. That was the World Series, I think, in 2011. That the Cardinals beat the Rangers. It was David Freese really when his kind of coming out party. And when Freese hit that extra inning bomb, I remember sitting in my apartment. I told you this before. I out loud, just to nobody, said, Cardinals just won the World Series, and there was a Game 7 the next night.
Right.
But
right.
You could tell, and
you could feel it.
So
you could feel that momentum.
So from Chris and I, everyone at the Grueling Truth, tip of the cap to Josh Hamilton. We hope to see you back if it works out. If not, hope at least in a uniform with a ball club, and all the best, and God bless, and thank you at least for giving us the time that you did to see just how great of a ball player you actually were. Now, Chris, that moves us back towards something a little bit more, I guess, surprising when it came to baseball. And that's the fact
really
that
surprising.
Francisco Lindor is reported to have turned down roughly a $100 million contract extension by the Cleveland Indians. And that's been reported very recently. And actually it also came out that there was really no ground made with Chris Bryant and the Cubs either, which is a topic for a different day. But Lindor was offered a pretty hefty sum in spring training, try to get a multi-year extension going. Details of talk never surfaced. Makes you wonder how far along did they actually get. But Tom Verducci from Sports Illustrated reported that he turned down an offer that paid him around $100 million, and this was substantiated. They did offer him a substantial amount. It couldn't be confirmed by other sources, and there's no active talks at this time. Now, it surprises me. I get he probably thinks he's thinking he's 23 years old, and he's got 113 days of major league service. So maybe he's thinking he's going to get more if he goes ahead and plays out through his arbitration years to full free agency. But man, even if you get a 6 or 7 year deal, and you're 29 or 30, you're still at a pretty peak area to go ahead and get that nice size contract again. We've seen it happen from a ton of guys. Get a 5, 6, maybe 7 year deal. I'm surprised he turned it down because, again, in the game of baseball, 162 games, anything can happen. The body is just, you can say what you want. As old-fashioned as I am, the body is not made to play 162 Major League Baseball games in, a 6-month period. It's incredibly taxing. And the chance that he had to get $100 million guaranteed and turns it down, I respect that he has that much belief in himself and his abilities. I just hope it doesn't come back to bite him on the backside of this when he gets close to that contract time.
Right. And so this isn't something that we see Francisco Lindor doing because he's being magnanimous or because he thinks that he's not going to get more money, right? I mean, he honestly thinks that he's probably one of those $300 million ball players. I'm sure that if he continues to have the sort of run that he's having now, we could conceivably see him getting a couple $100 million. But it seems almost too proud, right, to turn down a $100 million contract extension just because you think you're worth more money in the future. And we've seen that sort of bite people, right? We saw it just this year with Joey Bats turning down his offer, his qualifying offer from the Blue Jays, and then ending up having to re-sign with the Blue Jays for less money because he's not worth the kind of money he thought he was. Now, Lindor had a great season last season, arguably just as good as the start that he's put together so far. So for him to turn down money that is obviously the money that the club thinks that he's worth, it shows an extreme level of hubris, in my opinion. And I think that unless he really goes all out and wins the MVP this year with, huge numbers, that's going to bite him. If he has the same season that he had last year, he's going to be worth the same money. And unless he can significantly improve those numbers and show that that's not just the Bryce Harper type of fluke, right? Where Bryce Harper went from being a 280s hitter to being a 340s hitter to back to being a 280s hitter. If he can show that it's not that kind of fluke, then sure, maybe he's worth more money. But right now, he's not on a path to show that. He's not having the kind of season that's really going to show him being worth more than the money that they offered. And eventually, when you start doing this and you start turning down these kinds of deals, then the club is going to get upset, right? They're going to be like, okay, well, $100 million is what we think you're worth. If you think you can get more money somewhere else, then go get more money somewhere else because this is what you're worth to our ball club.
Right, and I think part of this is that he had a very good season last year. Now, granted, there wasn't obviously much to scout him on, and now pitchers and other ideas, other teams are going to have a better idea of how to attack him. But I think his mentality is if I can string together the same type of performances on a 2, 3, maybe 4 season basis, if it was me and he's doing that and he's still maybe 25, 26, then maybe a $250 million contract, a $200 million contract makes sense. So he still might be able to, get 100%, more out of what he's looking for. So I can understand why he sees that. To me, it's just it's a very gutsy thing to do. And, I would love to be a fly on the wall or to have a chance to kind of hear what's happening. Kind of have him come out of the extensions and go, well, we said this, they told us this, we disagreed, we'll try again later. It's just unfortunately those kind of discussions and those decisions that they make on both sides, unless it's really sneaked out by a source, you're never going to really hear what happens, behind those closed doors.
Right. And none of that is to say that we don't think that Lindor's worth big money as a baseball player. I don't want anybody to get that idea that we're saying that we think that Lindor is not as good as he thinks he is, or not worth a big money contract. It's just that when you're offered a big money contract, it shows a certain amount of overconfidence in yourself when you turn it down. All right. So
exactly.
We're kind of going to transition into our last segment of the show, and this is going to be another one of those new segments. We're going to transition into our behind the mask moment, where we're going to really get into an umpiring issue. And so, Graham, this is kind of your forte. What are we going to talk about this week on Behind the Mask?
It is a little bit more up my alley, but I certainly think that you're going to I certainly think you're going to have something to kind of chime in here. So
I will.
I think I think we've all watched. I think everybody that listens is most likely going to be a football fan. I'm not saying we're not making the blanket statement, but there's a good possibility that if you're listening to the show or if you're checking out things on the Grueling Truth Network, at Grueling Truth on Twitter, or if you're going to the gruelingtruth.net, maybe you're finding it at the Grueling Truth on Facebook, that you're a football fan. You're watching, you're checking out all the NCAA or the NFL stuff, maybe even Canadian Football League stuff that's on there. Obviously, a ton of great content on the Grueling Truth. And, of course, thank you also to our partner, MLB Mayhem, for being a part of Out of Left Field as well. Find them at MLB Mayhem on Twitter and MLB Mayhem on Facebook. So nothing really gets me more excited than watching an NFL game where Ed Hockley is the referee. Because first off, the guy loves to call the holding penalty because all he's doing when he calls a holding is flexing his arms. Right? That's it. That's all he wants to do. Say, yeah, there's a holding and come over here and say something to me about it. You kind of, let the bicep kind of curve a little bit. That's all he's really doing. Let's be honest. It's okay. It's okay. But then he also is known for giving these incredibly long and detailed explanations of a call. One of the things that has always kind of made me turn my head a little bit is that when replays happen in the major leagues, all you normally get is on the board in center field will say this play is currently under review, and then you'll usually get the call stands, the call is confirmed, the call is overturned. You don't know anything that happened. Granted, yes, you're seeing everything on the jumbotron, all that kind of stuff, and there's a ton of angles that they're looking at on smaller TVs, but they're right there in New York. But I have seen more often than not, there was one a couple of years ago. Actually, we asked Hunter Wendelstedt about it when he was on the show with us a couple of months ago. Major League umpire, assistant crew chief, was in the World Series a couple of years ago, about an ejection he had with Joe Madden, where Joe Madden came out. You see him saying, time out, Hunter, how did that happen? It's always like, how did that happen? And you see Hunter kind of just go, he's safe, and then reluctantly throw him out and then talk to him. If you can't argue replay, what I've always thought is, why can't you at least give a better explanation, because what's happening is the umpires on the field are the middleman, right? It's kind of like it's like playing telephone. Well, there is now a possibility, and it's nothing has been reached. No agreements have been reached. This is all being given by an anonymous source. But there is a now possibility that after umpires go to their headsets for the review and they get the review finalized, that the home plate, actually I would assume the crew chief, because where normally the home plate umpire is mic'd up, the crew chief is the one who goes ahead and finalizes the call. Even if they're the one who made the call, they're the one who gives the final verdict. There's a possibility now that the crew chief may be mic'd up as well to actually address the crowd as to what happened. Now there's nothing for sure this is going to happen. So, Chris, I want to ask you, because I'm okay with making changes to the way that this happens. I'm not so sure I'm totally digging the idea of the PA. But I'm kind of curious, because guys said they have a hard time hearing the PA in the bullpen. The acoustics are obviously going to be different in every stadium. But football does this. Hockey does this. We know that the NBA, once they look at the replay in the arena, they explain it to both coaches. And it seems like that for baseball managers, you're supposed to just suck it up and accept whatever gets called with really no explanation as to what was seen or why it was upheld or why it was overturned. And as a manager, that would bother me. If there's a close play and I just want to know what they saw. Because you and I have both said that we think that there have been some replays this year that have been questionable.
Yes. So here's my thing. I think that if the manager wants an explanation of the call, then the manager should be able to get an explanation of the call. I don't think that the MLB owes any explanation of why a call went one way or another to the fans. And I really wish that Major League Baseball would stop using football to justify rule changes in baseball. It bothers me that they're using these things that go on that are done in football to justify rule changes in baseball. Stop trying to make baseball into football. Stop trying to make game clocks and speed concessions and whatnot. Stop it. This is baseball. Baseball doesn't need the umpires to turn into PA announcers. The fans don't need to know the decision-making process. However, that being said, it's been brought to my attention, and we discussed this before the show, that the managers weren't getting any insight into the decision-making process because there was no decision-making process. When New York was looking at these replays, they basically just tell the guy on the field, hey, this is what it is. This is the call we're going to make. Go tell them. They don't say this is why.
Right. And this was shown as it happened. And I've told you guys about this before, the MLB Third Team documentary. You can find it on YouTube, actually. It's kind of neat to see. It was with the 2015 World Series, Giants and the Royals. 2014 World Series. But really neat to see because you get a really kind of an idea of what these guys are like on the field, off the field. You're actually hearing them handle situations that happen on the field. They're all mic'd up. And there was a replay in the seventh game. It was the double play by Joe Panic. I think Hosmer. It was a head-first slide into first. And literally all they heard back after a 4-minute review was, it was very close, but we're going to go ahead and overturn it. He is out at first base. That's it. And we're talking he was out by about a tenth of a second. And I'm fine with saying, hey, he's out, but even if you have timestamps, hey, the replay timestamps based on where the ball was caught show that the runner had not yet reached first base by the time the ball was secured in the glove. Easy, there you go. And I get you don't want to hear upon further review, the runner was tagged before he reached the base. I get you don't want to hear that. And that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I don't think these guys being PA announcers helps, and I think it's going to make the game a little bit longer. I get you don't want to have both managers hovering over you while you're listening, but at least having both guys there, or at least nearby that, hey, if a call is made and he just comes and say, hey, I just want to know what the explanation was. Okay. If you argue from there, dump him. Got no problem with that, okay, guys? Right. But that's kind of my thing, is at least afford the manager the opportunity to understand why the call was made as it was, and afford them the respect of saying, hey, this is what they told us. Here's what they saw. That's it. Because now at this point, the umpires are just sitting there waiting. More often than not, they have headsets on and they're hearing no sound. All they ever hear is when they come back and give them an answer. So, again, that's what we think. That's behind the mask. We're going to try and, tweak it as we go. Guys, if you ever have any ideas about, hey, who should the backstop of the week be? Who should the defender of the week be? Or something maybe that happens in umpiring in the game, a ruling that you saw, a replay, something that got kind of maybe made you tilt your head a little bit, let us know. Shoot us a message on Facebook, Out of Left Field with Graham and Chris. Of course, you can post any videos, any oddities you see on the Out of Left Field Baseball community page as well. Of course, tweet us at OOLeftField on Twitter, or send us an email, ooleftfield@gmail.com.
So I'd just like to add something real quick to sort of at the end of the show, not about umpiring, but just about some other things that we discussed. We all know that I watch baseball almost constantly. I'm watching baseball right now while we're doing the show. I've been watching the Pirates and the Yankees game. So I'd just like to say that Andrew McCutchen, in his first at bat against Pineda today, took Pineda deep, and the Pirates now lead 1-0 in the bottom of the second inning.
Andrew McCutchen is going to have himself a ticked off 80-game stretch. He is going to play ticked off, because now I think his whole thing is going to be, I'm going to stick it to every single person in this organization who is trying to show me disrespect, because now he's got a reason to do it.
You know what would be really great is if he played just phenomenally for the next 80 games, and then 2 weeks before the trade deadline, he goes to the general manager and demands a trade.
Demanding or not, if they don't get what they want, he's not going to get moved. But again, I think you and I both agree he will. So.
But it would be a power play for him to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I don't know if he has the clout anymore. Even if he has a great 80-game run, I don't know if he has the clout to really be able to pull that kind of power play. So again, guys, been out of left field. A couple of new things came out for you. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, please always give us a heads up of what you're liking. If you want something a little bit different, if you have ideas, if you're at a game or you're watching something, go, man, that guy made a great play. I think he might merit the player backstop of the week. And again, our hope is over time to kind of give maybe a reliever a week, starter of the week, that kind of thing. And of course, I know umpiring is not most people's cup of tea, but it is what we want to do is give you guys a full understanding of the game, even if you don't care, but a chance to understand the game from that umpire's perspective. What are they looking for? Why do they do something that way? Even if it's screwed up, and there have been screw-ups. We will always be fair to those guys, but we will be critical. We are not afraid to do that, and those that have been on the show, those guys that I know that I have contacts with in the big leagues, that's the one thing I always tell them is we may be critical of you at times, but we'll always be fair. So hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks so much for sticking around. Chris, great show, man. You are I know you can see the finish line with school, just another week or so left. So get on it, man. Stay strong, get through it. Looking forward to getting out there in a couple of months and having an enjoyable kind of vacation, catching some baseball. Guys, again, for Chris Furry, Graham McDown here saying thanks so much for joining us. Catch you guys next week on Out of Left Field.